If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Redondo Beach, California and the surrounding South Bay area, then hit subscribe so you can stay current in what's happening in Redondo Beach. My name is David Coe. I have lived in Redondo Beach for over 30 years and been a realtor for the last 20. Myself and my team at the Co Real Estate Group, we love to help people navigate the move here to Redondo Beach. And whether that's 9 days or 900 days away for you, we would love to be connected with you. All of our contact info is in the description, and we'd be happy to help you make a smooth move to Redondo Beach or the South Bay area. Hey everyone, welcome back to our show about living life here in the South Bay and the greater Los Angeles area. So today I've got an interesting topic to share with you. I've got a friend of mine, Saar, who's a personal injury attorney. And we're actually going to be talking today about liability that we have as homeowners. And I guess if you're thinking about liability, who better to point out where we are liable than with a personal injury attorney? So, Saar, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
I know besides being a personal injury attorney, you're also a property owner. So why don't you kind of introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah. So originally, when I actually first started in the area of law, I worked for an individual in Chicago. I practiced in Chicago, and he was the largest independent owner of nursing homes in the US. He also owned about 50 different properties in Chicagoland. And so I started off in real estate originally, and then I saw what a good investment real estate was. I have somebody else pay your mortgage and then you get the appreciation of the property. I thought that was a great idea. So then I started investing with some friends in multifamily and triple net leases. And I have long-term leases, short-term rentals. And so as a result of that, I've always been interested in real estate and have always had investment.
So I think what we're going to talk about today certainly affects people that own rental property, but a lot of the stuff just affects homeowners as well. Right? Like
correct. There's no differentiation, correct, between a homeowner, a commercial property owner, and somebody who just leases a property. It could also even affect somebody who leases a property.
Interesting. All right. Well, look, what are some of the, I think, most people might think of the obvious hazards, right? But what are from your experience as a personal injury attorney, what are some of the hidden liabilities or blind spots that people have with their properties and with potential liability?
Yeah. So one of the things you may not think about is if you have a property, for instance, that's in a bad neighborhood and you have noticed that several people have had incidents on your property, have been robbed or mugged or whatever the instance is, you may be required under the law to actually have to take steps to protect against that, whether it's a security guard or cameras or extra lighting or whatever. There are cases that do specifically state you might be required to provide that protection for patrons on your property. Now, if you're a homeowner, really doesn't apply, but if you do have like a commercial property, it really would apply.
So like if there are people that have been getting mugged in the block and I have a dark entry, even though it might be gated, if I don't have enough light there or security cameras, I could still be held liable if something happens on the
correct. And so, I always tell people, think about it from the standpoint of your family. If your family was going to go there, what would you want to do to protect them, whether it's extra lighting or a camera or maybe a security guard? If you've had 10 incidents where somebody's gotten robbed on your property, I would probably put a security guard there. If it's been one or two times, there's not to say there's a hard and fast rule as to a number, but you want to do everything within your power to prevent liability against you. You spent a lot of time, effort, money to be able to obtain these properties, to own them, and you want to protect yourself against liability.
Okay, so what if I'm in a transaction? I'm looking at a potential investment property or maybe a home that I want to live in. What might be some things that you as a personal injury attorney would identify as being liability that maybe a home inspector wouldn't?
Right. I'll give you an example. So there are defects, like a sidewalk defects. Some are trivial, some are non-trivial, and we can discuss that. But oftentimes people don't think about the fact that their property adjacent to sidewalk, if you have trees growing on or foliage or anything like that, and that could potentially cause an injury, you too would be responsible. There are cases where people have to step off the sidewalk into the street because your trees are growing out too much and you haven't cut them down. If they then get hit by an individual driving in the street because they had to walk in the street, you too would be potentially responsible for those injuries.
There's a property, like we walk a lot, and there's a property where their hedges go almost at a 45-degree angle, and
Exactly.
there's no way I can walk on that sidewalk, because I'm 6 feet tall and I always have to
Right.
step around. So something like that, the bushes might be trimmed, they might be manicured, but if they prevent me from being on the sidewalk and I step off and break an ankle or get hit by a car, that owner could be responsible?
Correct. In fact, I had that exact case where there was a hedge at a 45-degree angle. They didn't do a good job cutting it. And then an individual had to ride their bike on the sidewalk. Normally they would have been in the bicycle lane, but there was construction. So they rode on the sidewalk and they were impaled by a branch of a tree that wasn't cut back. And it literally impaled through their shoulder, causing major injuries. They have to have surgery and things like that. And so there's potential liability against individuals there. Yeah.
Okay. So we always hear about the obvious ones, right? The slip and falls, a step that's uneven and things like that. But what are some examples of things where, like, maybe you think you're protected because I put a beware of dog sign on a piece of property, or enter at your own risk, thinking that I have some kind of liability protection? Like, do those actually work? Does that alleviate any responsibility if I just notify there's a potential problem?
Yeah, so it depends what the problem is. So if you had spilled water and you put cones and put wet floor, you're really doing a good job. You have notice of the potential issue. You've now given people notice of it, and so you've done everything you can do. I mean, you can't leave it there for 24 hours. You need to try and get to clean it up as quickly as possible, but you've done a good job. If you've got a dog and you just say beware of dog, that's not going to do anything. In California, dog bites, which are a big issue, actually insurers pay more out on dog bite cases than they do on car accident cases, if you can believe it. The dog owner is the virtual insurer of the dog's actions, meaning if my dog bites you, I am responsible. There's no one free dog bite rule. I put up a beware of dog sign. There's none of that. There are very specific exceptions as to when strict liability doesn't come into play, but none of those would really apply to a homeowner or a commercial business owner. We've had cases where people they bring their dogs to their business, and the next thing you know, the dog bites somebody. I'm going after that person's business insurance, which normally they wouldn't expect to have those types of claims.
Well, I mean, speaking of insurance, I think if someone's watching this right now, they're like, oh my God, what kind of risks do we have? Like, what are some of the things we should be doing as property owners to protect ourselves? I mean, beyond just making sure that we clean up the water, right? Or we keep our dog locked up. Like, what are some of the things we should also be doing to protect ourselves and our property?
Yeah, other than the things that we discussed, making sure that your common areas are clear, that you just do inspections every once in a while, that you make sure that there are no tripping hazards, and if there are, try and fix them unless they're trivial. But what you really want to do, the most important thing, and I spend half my time kind of counseling clients about this, is having enough insurance. People underestimate how much insurance they need to have. I know it's a bear to pay it. It's a big expense. You think, I haven't had any claims, until that claim comes about and you go, wow, I'm lucky I had that much money. Because if you don't have enough insurance and the injuries are such that they warrant an award greater than the amount of your insurance, oftentimes individuals who own property, homeowners, business owners, commercial property, doesn't matter, triple net lease, whatever it is, they're going to go after that person personally, and they're going to have to write a check, and we call it contribution. And we've had several cases this year alone where individuals had to come up with contribution because they were not properly insured. It's much cheaper in the long run to pay a little bit extra for the insurance and have a good umbrella policy that covers you for all the unforeseen things, including dog bites. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But you want to talk to your broker and make the broker do their work. right? It's their job to be asking you questions. Every year you need to review your policy, because I hear more often than not, I've had this Allstate policy for 20 years. The problem is a lot's changed in 20 years. 20 years ago, you may not have been married. 20 years ago, you may not have had a dog. 20 years ago, you had a 1,200 square foot house. Now you have a 4,000 square foot house. Things have really changed. And so just like you change your estate planning documents, you have to change your insurance in the same way. So it's very important to spend time with your broker, making sure that you kind of look over everything. Invite your broker to the property, have them look at everything. Say, is there something out there that I could potentially be at risk for? And with respect to dogs especially, you need to make sure that none of the dog breeds are excluded on your policy. If you're renting to somebody, if there is an exclusion, I have a short-term rental, I say no dogs over 50 pounds. And specifically, you cannot have these 5 breeds, because I know they're excluded on my policy. If you bring those breeds in and something happens, you're going to be personally liable. So it's really important to think about those things.
I always tell people, like, even cheap insurance is expensive, right? So what's the point of spending all that money on insurance if you have a claim and you've got no protection from it, right?
Exactly.
Spend a little bit more and then actually have it there, because
when you need it.
When I need it. And look,
yeah.
If something happens and you sue me, I want my insurance company, and I want to know I'm going to be protected, right? I don't want to be looking at risking my own personal assets just because I wanted to save some money on insurance.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. You worked hard to get these assets. Suddenly you have to write a check. I mean, I've seen individuals who have to write a check for $1 million cash because they did not have enough insurance. And that's, they didn't purposely hurt the person, but at the same time, you're still responsible for your actions have consequences. You're responsible for it. And because the damages were such, they weren't properly insured, they had to write, 7-figure checks.
Well, Saar, I appreciate it. Look, hopefully, if you're watching this, hopefully it just gave you a moment to think about your own properties and what you could be doing. And if you're watching this and you may have had an injury of some kind, I would recommend you call Saar. He would absolutely be the one that I would call if ever I was looking to sue. So, Saar, thank you so much for spending some time today with us.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Look, if you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe down below. We try to generate great content for homeowners and potential homeowners and home investors. So come on back and we'll see you next time. Take care.